Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for a fireside chat. We've got some fun topics to hit today. I am here with Aaron Grossman, who is the CEO of Talent Launch. If you're not familiar with Talent Launch or Aaron, you definitely should be. He's been in this industry for over 20 years, and Talent Launch itself is actually a $170 million portfolio of staffing and recruiting firms. They've got 10 brands and growing. So all kinds of fun things going on there. And today we are going to be chatting about the importance of culture for growing staffing and recruiting firms. So we're going to cover everything from how to hire and acquire based on culture, how to ensure you've got that great setup if you've got remote employees. I know things are really moving in that direction these days. Also, how to ensure you've got buy-in from your current team, and overall how to align those values to the culture. So Aaron, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I wish they could actually come up with another name other than fireside chat, because in the summertime, I don't know if I want to be by a fire.
I don't know.
Air conditioning chat. Air conditioning chat.
That's a good point. Air conditioning chat. We'll call it that in the summer months. So why don't we go ahead and dive in? Kind of like just I mentioned in this intro. I mean, you've grown this family of brands, and you guys are continuing to do that. And I would love to hear, I'm sure other people would love to hear how you guys ultimately hire and acquire based on culture and how that works for you.
Yeah, well, I think I probably will start at the beginning. When I started my business, I was 27 years old when I had the opportunity to start my own company, which is now morphed into what is Talent Launch today. But when I started my company, I'd had my first experience out of college was working for an insurance brokerage firm in Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay. And it was only 10 people in the company, and it was really not a culturally friendly place to be. In fact, there was a radio station at one point that actually came live on radio with a Christmas tree because someone had voted us the Scrooge of Cincinnati, Ohio, which was crazy. So a lot of my experiences have helped me shape kind of what I believe culture needs to be for me. Mm-hmm. That was one of them. I realized that, I wanted to be a part, that it's important to have an environment that people can really be inspired by and connected to and want to thrive in. And so when I had the opportunity to start my business, at first I was just kind of head down, had a vision of kind of how I wanted to see things, mm-hmm. And really wanted to do good work for my clients. And then I'll never forget it. It was probably 6 or 7 years into my business. We had grown it pretty significantly. I think we had 35 employees at the time. Mm. And I just lifted my head up. I'm like, okay, when I first started my business, I wanted to work with 20 companies. That was my goal.
Okay.
And we were working with over 200 companies by then. And I'm like, wow. So all of these companies, all these people are on this journey with me. Why is this happening? How is this happening?
Why are they here?
Yeah. Why do they choose to be here? And I knew, I had never studied culture before, didn't really understand it, but I knew that there was something mm-hmm. that was bringing everybody together in this way. And I was able to meet a business consultant who really had talked to a group that I was participating. I was in the entrepreneurs organization, EO it's called.
Oh, sure.
And it's the mission is to engage leading entrepreneurs to learn and grow. And my forum, we had this business consultant come in and really educate us on culture and on mission, on vision, mission, values, and purpose, and all of that. And I was just so enamored with the concept, because I thought, if I dive deep into understanding all of that, mm-hmm. maybe I'll understand why people are on this journey with me.
And how you can expand it, right?
Yeah, and then how can I expand it? If I can simplify it to that, then I can find other people like that appreciate that and want to become part of that, and I can grow. And really, it was that simple for me. And so I took this huge deep dive into it and really kind of wanted to, and I would say also in that journey, I understood a lot more about myself, because I really believed that the values of the company were the values that I was living by, because I started the company. And right. And so I needed to really go on that journey to understand what were those tenets, those values that I was really living by, so that I can understand why were people participating on this journey with me. So I did all of that. And and really started to kind of grow our business. We went from 35 to 70 employees pretty quickly.
Oh,
And I still realized that there was something missing. We had mission, vision, and values.
mhm.
Um, but there was something that was missing in that aspect of things. One of it was purpose. And one of the things that I used to always talk about to everybody back then, and it was a kind of a joke, is because I was growing a business, I wanted to be a high school wrestling coach
Oh,
because
really? I didn't know that.
that was my that still, and I actually am a high school wrestling coach today.
Oh,
So
very
I'm
cool.
actually living that dream out in some ways, but that's what I always wanted to do. And I wanted to do that because my high school wrestling coaches helped me get through a lot of mental adversity that I had in my head, and
Sure.
helped me realize the potential that was within me.
Mhm.
And that was what drove me to want to be a high school wrestling coach.
So
Somebody, a really good friend of mine, we were having drinks one day. He looked at me and he said, "Aaron, haven't you always been a wrestling coach, just not on the mat?" Meaning that in my company, haven't I always been a wrestling coach? And it was like the biggest aha moment for me. Like, yeah, I actually have been doing that. I am a wrestling
right,
coach. I'm just not doing it on the wrestling mat.
right.
And so the purpose really came out of that. The purpose of why I come up and get up and go to work every day was really about the concept of potential, the power of
Mm,
potential,
mhm.
and really a desire to motivate the world to realize its potential.
Right.
And that purpose statement, once I solidified that, it clarified everything for me. It clarified why I'm doing this business, why I wake up every day, why people are coming to want to work with me on this journey,
Yeah.
is really to serve that purpose around the power of potential. And it starts within ourselves, but then it moves to everybody that's around us, our friends, our family, our coworkers, our communities, and hopefully ultimately the world.
Right.
And
Well, it's funny because you hear people talk about this, and it's one thing if it's just a great idea in your head, but for anybody listening, if you're actually hearing this from a CEO of a firm that, has acquired 7 companies, built 3, continuing to grow 170 million within that current portfolio, like it's a tangible, repeatable process. It's not just a good idea that a life coach put in your head. like it's actually something that's translating to careers and revenue and growth. And so I love that. And so I want to show a few people something you shared with me and you guys talk about, which you call the roots of the redwood, right? Your values. So can I pull that up so you can talk through it and show a few people?
yeah, and I actually have a little story about that too,
Oh,
which was perfect timing for, yeah, if you want to share that.
yeah.
So this is kind of the concept that took me several years to kind of create, and it's built off of a redwood tree. So as I was just talking about earlier, talking about the purpose, and then the values of our company are the roots of a tree.
Mm,
Um, what I noticed when we went from 35 to 70 employees is that there was still something missing.
mhm,
We were hiring to the values, we were managing to the values, but we weren't necessarily supporting those values with the right air and nutrition,
mm,
and that is what these clouds are. Now the story is that many years ago, I I went to my first redwood tree forest in
uh,
California, and I had actually got engaged to my now wife, and we were out there, and we're going through this redwood tree forest, and I was like astounded. Like, I'm like,
it's
these
unreal.
it's unreal. I mean, these
Yeah.
things look like something you'd see in a comic book or something. Like,
Right.
they're so
Right.
big. Like, and my mind always turns to life and to business. And I just kept thinking about, like, how do these trees that grow in the Pacific Northwest in such a massive and beautiful way cannot grow where I live in Cleveland, Ohio? They don't grow in the Midwest. Like, why is that? Like,
Right, no,
they're
they don't.
so big and powerful. And the reality is that while those roots of that tree are so strong and grow something so magnificent, if you don't have the right environment to support those roots, they never grow into that redwood.
Sure.
And that was the kind of the missing part to how I chose to build and express culture, is that while we're taught about mission, vision, and values, we're
Mhm.
not necessarily taught about what are those things that we need to actually do to support those values, which are the roots of a tree to grow.
Mhm.
So the concept of the redwood tree was like, if we can understand, if we know what our roots look like, and we believe they're magnificent and massive and huge and beautiful, how do we create the right environment to allow those roots to grow no matter where it is in the world,
Totally.
so that we can grow our own redwood tree wherever we're at. So I spent a couple of years kind of building these clouds, which really represent the air and nutrition that are
Mhm.
driving into those roots, which are our values, so that we can grow a redwood tree wherever we are in the world. And what I didn't know until after the fact, I wish I knew it before so I could say that, but I can't, was that when you study or what a redwood tree forest is like, all of those roots are interconnected. So it's like a
Oh, with
system,
each
like they,
other.
yes. So
Oh,
they actually speak to each other. They work in cohesion with each other. It's
wow.
really an interesting topic if you want to explore it. And as we started to build out the Talent Launch Network, which was our acquisition strategy,
Mhm.
we wanted to acquire companies, maintain their brand identity. We tend to be we tend not to operate with that kind of ego. We buy companies that are very successful in their market, that have been in their market for, let's say, 20 to 30 years, even longer,
Yep.
and that founder that may not have a succession plan. And so we want to be that succession plan for that founder. And as part of that is that we want to maintain their brand identity. And
Mhm.
so the way we look at it when it comes to our culture is that each company that comes into our network is its own redwood tree, and it's
Sure.
interconnected through the roots, through those values that are aligned throughout every single company in our network. And
Great.
it's this culture that has given me incredible confidence to run a larger company, to grow by acquisition, because
Mhm.
I feel that we can find our people throughout the United States through this concept of our redwood tree culture.
Right. Whether it's hiring, your next recruiter, your next leader internally at Talent Launch, or having a conversation with a business owner who's looking to exit or looking to just kind of be a part of something larger. It sounds like as long as they have alignment in these areas, you've got a lot more confidence that it's going to work for the long term for both of you.
Exactly. That's exactly how we see it. And I think, obviously it seems like it's been validated and that we've been able to
Yeah.
grow very rapidly. When I first started and started this project many years ago, I think we were roughly maybe a 20 to $25 million a year company. And today we're at a run rate of 170 million, and hopefully climbing. Our goal is to become a $1 billion company by 2028, which really our goal is to be able to support 100,000 lives in a given year,
Wow.
which is roughly would equate to $1 billion for us. So that's kind of our goal. But the reason why I put that big number out there is that I think when we get to that point and we're living our culture in the right way, we are we are we are we are motivating the world to realize the potential, because we're in so many different communities, so many different states. At least in the United States, we'll be doing the United States. We'll still have more room to grow throughout the
Right.
world, but that's
Right.
really kind of why we want to get to where we're at, is that we're on this mission, and I believe it truly is a mission to motivate the world to realize its potential. And I think we all become better people and better communities when we're living in that way.
Yeah, no, I love that, Aaron. And I get to talk to a lot of staffing and recruiting firm owners and leaders, you know, honestly, multiple a day, right? Like just different people that I'm networking with and getting to know. And uh, most people have the mindset of, okay, I want to grow because I had fun doing it and why not? And then there's a smaller pocket of people that truly have that inspiration of I want to create careers for people. And that's wonderful, right? Like everything makes the world go round, right? So it's all good. It's all building to this great industry. But it's pretty unique to have the mindset of, okay, I want to be this size, which equates to, ultimately equipping this many people. So I love, when we first were introduced, I just loved hearing about that. And that's ultimately why we're chatting here on this, what are we calling it? Air conditioned chat, not fireside chat about it. And one of the other topics we had talked about previously was, with COVID, so many staffing and recruiting firms, just companies everywhere were forced to go remote. And, we're fortunate enough to work in an industry that you can continue doing your role remote, all of those things. But you've been working with that for a long time, as you guys have been acquiring companies over the years. one could argue that you are hiring and ultimately managing a lot of remote people. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you foster a culture in this kind of ever-changing remote world. And maybe that applies to the companies you're acquiring, but even more so as people are hearing, let's say they've got, their 30 recruiters or their 200 recruiters, whatever size company they are. There's you see on LinkedIn every day, like people are giving a lot of pushback of not wanting to go back into the office. And some of us thrive on that, the culture there, and other people really need just the flexibility. And so, how do you maintain values and the sticky factor of your own company when technically they could plug in and do what they're doing for anybody, right?
Right. And that is actually the absolute challenge that companies are going through right this second. I think as people are coming back into their offices, and flexibility, I think to a person is key, is one of the key factors of what they want to choose and who they want to choose to work with. You're going to see a lot of transition because of that. And culture is much more challenging in that kind of environment to kind of have thrive within a business so that you maintain people because of it, right? Um, so to your what you said earlier, like, yeah, we started thinking about this remote concept years ago because
Right.
to your point, I knew that if we were going to acquire a company out in Oregon and we're in Cleveland, Ohio, that's pretty far away.
Hmm.
How do you create an environment that fosters culture so that we all stay connected and aligned so that we're moving forward in the right direction. And so, we started to embrace things that we felt would um, help with remote work concepts like videos. So like we started doing video conferencing and video meetings like all the time on a regular basis back in 2014.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah, and most of us
so
kind of jumped on that bandwagon last year or a year and a half ago, right?
right. So like even with intent, like we would purposely do video meetings even if people were in the same location because
Mm.
we wanted to create good habits around this. I had always thought like the way we created our technology infrastructure was under the concept that we didn't want to have to hire people just in Cleveland, Ohio,
Mm.
because that's where we were headquartered. We wanted to hire the best talent
Yeah.
no matter where it existed. So structurally, we created our entire environment off the concept of remote work, not realizing that COVID would require everybody to be work remotely
Right.
last year. But we had a head start when that happened. Like so we had already had a lot of comfort around
Mm.
the tools that we would have to utilize in a remote work setting. And again, our technology was set up so that literally people could take their Chromebook. We have Chromebooks. They would take them home from their office and everything was on their Chromebook. As
Mhm.
long as they had internet at home, there was literally nothing to change. There was no phone numbers to change, nothing.
Mhm.
And so I think our people found value in knowing that as a company, we're actually prepared for all of this.
Right. Well, and you
Um,
about remote work around efficiency, right? And then you also think about it in terms of the excitement of being a part of a vibrant culture. And, like, what are some things that you guys do? Like, I mean, do you do like remote happy hours, or it's hard to like take that tangible, like yesterday, my whole team, Parka and Verseek, are sister companies, right? Verseek does executive search and consulting, Parka does digital marketing for this industry. And we all went and did lawn bowling, right? So like we had apps, we had drinks, people are hanging out, and we haven't been able to do that for a long time, but there's a cool vibrancy that happens when you can. But I wonder, when you have employees that are not sitting next to you, or in your case when you're acquiring companies that need to all work together, how do you foster that sense of community beyond kind of the day-to-day interaction and meetings you have?
yeah, well, I can go through kind of what we did during COVID that we've kind
Mhm.
of kept moving forward. So while everybody was using Zoom and things like that, we do think of ourselves as an innovative company. And what was really cool is that, that mindset has really kind of gone downstream so that all types of people in our organization are thinking that way. And
Mm.
there was somebody in our business analyst department actually had found this thing called Remo,
Okay.
which was a really cool concept out of, I think it was out of South Korea, that really kind of thought about how to create meetings in a way that that you would almost mimics what a conference feel would be like. So you kind of go into this, you go into Remo and there's tables, and you can sit at a table, and there's 6 people at a table, and when you sit at that table, all you see is those 6 people, and you're talking to those
Oh,
6 people.
sure.
Well, everybody else is at other tables, and then you can have you can press a button, and then everybody is looking at the stage, and then you can start a keynote presentation or things like that. So we used that site. We thought it was really cool, really different.
Yeah.
It allowed for intimate conversations to happen, because the issue with Zoom is that if there's 150 people or 200 people on it, you're not having one-on-one
Well, and
conversations.
everybody's just dumped into the same place. It's either chaos or silence, right?
Right. And so this gives you like really intimate conversations. So people, for us, it actually allowed some of our operating companies that were in different states to meet each other for the first time, have
Wow.
conversations. And
Sure.
so, yeah, we did like what everybody else. So we did happy hours. We've done things like having a wine sommelier come in and
Oh,
deliver
cool.
wines to people, and we would do wine tastings, or we did that with beer too, and Family Feud, things of that nature, to kind of keep the engagement going of our culture. That's one of the environmental pillars. The
Mm-hmm.
the other aspects of our culture really are embedded into the programs and the design of our company. Like, so compensation, the way we kind of built compensation, we had to make sure it was tied to core tenets of our business, like,
Sure.
so of our values, of our culture. So we want to make sure there's transparency, that it offers transparency as part of our accountability pillar. We want to make sure we have a transparent and open environment. So we
Mhm.
want to make sure our compensation program is designed so that it can be open and visible for people to see and look at each other's, and have that peer-to-peer kind of competition that comes with that. And
Sure.
competition is another one of our pillars. We want people who have a passion for wanting to win,
Right.
and so we design, for example, our competition program to kind of mimic that idea of competition being a part of it. Active learning is another huge part of our culture,
Mhm.
and it is also one of the clouds, one of the air nutrition. So we want to create things that allow people to grow both personally and professionally. So we're constantly bringing speakers in, not only to talk about our industry, like
Mhm.
industry experts, but life coaches, or people that have had amazing experiences that are either personal or professional, that offer personal or professional development. So we would use the Remo site to kind of bring those people in. We had a conference in August. We have a leadership conference in August where about 50 of our leaders come in, and we had a 3-day event with different speakers that come in, and all of that. So we try to really kind of maintain the integrity of our culture, because it's not, a lot of people just think about culture and they think about the engagement portion of it.
Right.
And so like, even like when we first started talking, doing the bowling and all that stuff, that's
Fun stuff.
that's the engagement. But what culture is really supposed to do is to create engagement that drives performance and
Right.
drives the outcomes that you're trying to achieve in your business. And
Mhm.
so that is really kind of the design of our culture, really kind of speaks to both of those aspects. One cloud is engagement, and that's to be immersed in the hustle. So we want to do those kind of things, but what do we do? What are the other things around culture that are really designed to take that engagement and actually grow our business in a meaningful way?
And that's a really good point because, the whole concept of millennials need ping pong tables and things like that, right? Like, I mean, I should say everybody, right? Everybody wants a fun environment, but a fun environment only goes so far. If, as a recruiter, you can't make good money even if you do placements, or as a leader, your company's not growing, your profitability isn't in a good place, but everybody's having a great time. Like, at the end of the day, business is business, and it still needs to make financial sense for everyone. So I love that, not only is culture for you guys tied into people wanting to be there and wanting to stay, but also, is it elevating the business and ultimately creating great careers for people, right?
Right. And there are two values that are our core values. One is entrepreneurship, and that's really simply taking responsibility for your outcomes. You don't have to be an entrepreneur,
Mm. Right.
but to express the value of entrepreneurship is really, how do I own my experience, take responsibility for my outcomes? And so the way we lead and manage within our business is designed around that concept. So, we are constantly influencing our managers and our leaders to make sure that when someone's not doing what you think they should be doing, make sure that they are accountable for that. They understand that. And if we've hired right, we know that people, we want to believe that we don't hire people that are that's come in first day and say, man, I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to get fired. Like,
Right,
I
right,
want to believe that people
right,
intently want to do the right thing. And sometimes that means, as a leader and a manager, we've got to be that guardrail for them and make sure they know when they're doing things really well and
Mhm.
when they're things that may be going off track. And we have to have those kind of conversations. The other core value that kind of even supports that is our core value of integrity. And now integrity, a lot of people have integrity as a core value, and it's almost always about saying, hey, we're going to do the right thing. It's doing the right thing.
Right,
To me, that is inherently a part of business. Like, I'm not
right.
hiring anybody
You
unless you
should
do the right thing.
assume that you're gonna do the right thing. Yeah,
Right. So what I actually, I'm a big fan of Brene Brown. Some people
yeah,
who might be listening to this podcast have heard her.
yeah.
I got to see her in person down in Texas at one time, and she actually talked about her definition of integrity. And I R&D'd it, which is rip off and duplicated it into our value, which is really, integrity is really about choosing courage over comfort.
Mm,
And as a leader, that is a really hard value to actually live by, because that oftentimes means we have to have hard conversations when we don't want to, because it's
mhm.
scary and you might upset somebody. um but for us, like, because it's forthright in how we think about our culture, we have to choose courage over comfort in those moments. And if we've hired right, these people intently want to do good. And so, and
Mhm,
and if you're an active learner, which again I just talked about earlier, if you have an active learning mindset, you want to hear constructive feedback.
mhm.
Even if it may not be what you like.
Right,
um the reality is that somebody feels that way, and that's their operating reality. And I want to know that.
right, and you wanna
um
push past whatever that friction is to get to the point where it's happening and working better, right? Even if
ex-
that we call those courageous conversations in my family, right? It's just like sometimes you got to have those in order to get to a better place on the other side where you're both kind of clipping along. And in your case, all of the employees are clipping along and going in the same direction.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And another one of our core values is communication, which is painting pictures to create alignment. And it's because we believe that every human being has their own set operating reality they live by. Because
Mhm,
every human being has their own life's experiences and perceptions that they gain from those experiences, which ultimately shape their own reality. And so,
mhm,
if everybody's operating within their own reality, it's incredibly important that we create communication that works to paint the pictures of what I might be saying, what my reality looks like,
right.
to see if I can get you connected to it. And so, when you think about integrity and choosing courage over comfort and taking responsibility for your outcomes and painting pictures to create alignment, because everybody has their own operating reality, it all interconnects. That if we're
Yeah.
doing it the right way, we're living in a very healthy way, not only in our business but in our personal lives as well.
Right. And from a business standpoint, I would imagine relates to employee retention, employee growth, overall business growth. Like there's so many good tangibles that come out of that. And lastly, I want to chat about what advice you would have for staffing and recruiting firm owners and leaders on how to establish their own values. It's always one of those things that people almost laugh at, like, oh, we've got them, they're on a wall, but I don't know that we really live by them. So some people go through that process, other people go through it and really hire to it. Like I would say our family of companies, we've got a set of core values and we're very strategic on hiring to that. But how would you advise people to get started if they're looking to create that for themselves and create something that has buy-in from their team if they don't have it yet?
Yeah, and I would say, before I kind of get into the answer to that, is we do similar things. So, like, our interview questions
Yeah.
we want to make sure that those questions are actually solving for our values or our pillars, so that we're interviewing to the culture and making sure there's alignment to that. And we have assessments that we provide. We use predictive index,
Sure.
and that helps us kind of identify the role, the person, and kind of fit from a cultural perspective into that particular role.
Mm.
And that's worked out really well. Again, we manage this. I mean, one thing I would also say is that we have we have parted ways with people who are really successful,
Yep.
you know, financially successful, but weren't cultural fits.
Yep.
And we've made the hard decision to part ways with those people, and each and every time we've grown as a result of that.
Hmm.
And so I'm always encouraging people to, if you're truly living your culture, live it. Don't allow somebody to hold you hostage, because they
Right.
can still create results. Just because somebody's not aligned to your culture doesn't mean they can't be really good at what you're doing.
Right.
Um, but when they're living in your world that way, it's going to impact other people
Oh
and
yeah.
their success as a result.
Hmm.
Now, the way I came about culture, I think is, I definitely didn't get this out of a book, but because sometimes I've heard that, hey, let's make this a collaborative effort,
Hmm.
and really kind of help to design what these values are. I'll be honest, I didn't um, go in that direction. And the reason why is I kind of said this earlier. When I founded the company at 27 years old and was running the company for the first few years, there was a culture living there, and that culture and the essence of it and what drove my passion
Right.
was the culture that was living at that moment in time. And for me to want to stay connected to the business and have passion to want to grow it, I had I wanted to take a deep dive to understand what was that culture like that I had passion around, that I wanted to drive forward.
Hmm.
Because I wanted to believe that, if I could identify those values, that there would be other people like me who would want,
Right.
and then if they're like me, I'm gonna like them, they're gonna like me, we're
Right.
gonna be able to do this together,
Right.
versus it being something that we were all kind of creating that may
Right.
not be real to begin with.
And that's a really good point. If you're operating a company right now and it's going well and you're attracting and retaining really good people, it's less about going out and finding it. It's more about uncovering what's already there and getting it
That
into writing and telling people, hey, these are the things that are already happening. Do you agree? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I actually did like it was a kind of a modified kind of TED Talk years ago about this, and I actually had my TED Talk was really going on the journey of how I came to those values, and I can actually go back to very specific life experiences that kind of created the foundation of what that core value was in our business today.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be things that I experienced as a child, it could be things that I experienced in athletics, but they were really tangible experiences that I had that really helped make this real for me. That this culture was absolutely real for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the goal is how do I find those people where they can connect into it and feel like that's me too. Um,
Really.
and so really that's been that redwood tree is really about finding people when they hear about it and they understand what it is. Do they feel connected to it? Do they feel that that represents them as a person too? And do they aspire to want to unlock their potential and the potential of others?
Right.
And when we find those people, it's a really cool thing, because they just are running inside of this business. We tend not to be a company that wants to micromanage people. Instead, we
Mhm.
want to inspire people to become the best versions of themselves. And oftentimes that means we have to have a culture that actually failure is a
Mhm.
part of this. Like, because I
Yeah.
think in order for you to learn, sometimes you have to slip and fall,
Right.
but it's how fast are you going to get back up, learn from that mistake, and fail forward in that process.
Yep.
And that's really part of our culture, is to allow for that. And when we allow for that, and for people to own their experience and take responsibility for their outcomes, whether it's good or bad,
Hmm.
ultimately we get people who are achieving great things in their own lives and for our business because of that.
Right. Well, and you think about the times in life or in a career where you've got somebody looking over you so intensely, just kind of almost waiting for you to fail. Hopefully people haven't experienced that more than once ever, right? But I'm sure in some organizations and companies that's a normal and that would be awful, but nobody operates well in that environment. I always tell the people that I've reported to, it used to be our CEO, now it's the president of our company. The thing for me personally is if I know you believe in me, I will be able to do anything. If I think somebody's going, I just don't know if they've got it. We've all got that inner dialogue in our own head anyway that we work
Right.
shut down and say, you know what, nope, I'm just going to go for it. That if you have leadership and accountability and people around you that you just know believe in you, and that's why they have you on the team, there's so much more your people can accomplish. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and in our company, the four core values that we live by that we've shaped are around collaboration, which tends to be really unique in the staffing and recruiting industry as far as bringing people in on your deal and not being worried they're going to blow it up, right? Like they actually fun mini story. Tony Sorensen, our CEO, he started his first staffing and recruiting firm back in 2001, and he started it with four partners, and that's a lot. That's a lot of partners, a lot of voices, and they were clipping along, grew a really great company, highly awarded in their market. And then they realized a few years in that they were just wanting to run business differently, right? Not good versus bad, but just different mindsets. And one was more of a lifestyle. We're making good money, we're running full desks. We don't want to invest in things like marketing that seems like a risk, right? Nobody else in the industry is doing pay-per-click or SEO back in 06, 07, things like that. And those companies actually split ways, and now they're directly competing firms, both successful in their own right. But one of the things that when I joined that company before it split back in 2012, I saw was really interesting is they had a few producers, like you mentioned, that were really good at billings, but were not culture people. And so when Verseek rebranded and restarted, they created these core values around collaboration, continuous improvement, being results driven, community involvement, and they hire and fire to those. And it's amazing. Like you have a few of those moments as a leader, or even just as an individual in a company, where you realize life's too short to keep people here that are not desiring to be here, right? Like people can be successful in a lot of environments, but hire the people that want to be a part of your team because you've established this vision that they can buy into, and then they get to be successful. So do you, and the world goes round, right?
100%. Dan Gilbert, who owns the Cleveland Cavaliers, there's years ago, I was listening on the radio, and he had this one quote that I just love, and it's money doesn't lead, it follows.
Hmm.
And I think when you have the money lead, you tend to open up opportunities to have people who aren't cultural fits that are producing in your company, because the money's leading
Right.
the actions you're taking and the decisions you're making. When I heard that it was like, for whatever reason in my life, like I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but when I hear like simple things that make a lot of sense to me, it just resonates, and I just
Right.
repeat it in my head over and over again. That's when it still repeats in my head, 15 years later, is that, money doesn't lead, it follows. And I have to make sure that I'm always doing the right thing, and that right thing is centered around our Redwood Tree culture. And if we do the right thing, we got the right people, most of the people associated in the right way to that culture,
Yeah.
we're gonna be okay, and we're gonna end up doing better than
Oh
what
yeah.
most people are doing. And that,
Yeah.
obviously I still have a lot to go to get to the ultimate goal that I'm trying to achieve. But the fact that we're, sitting where we're at from a revenue perspective gives me some courage and confidence that we're doing something right.
Right.
And this is working in a way, but it's never done. The work's never finished. We're still optimizing culture every single day. We're still trying to figure out what's a better way to manage to it, what's a better way to get people connected to it. So it's a living, breathing
Yeah.
process, and
Like a
it,
redwood
it's
tree, right?
yeah, it's a living tree. We've got to continue to foster and grow it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just so glad that we were able to hop on here and chat, because culture has been such a big, important topic in my life, and being with this family of companies the last 9 years and seeing that when they shifted gears with their culture, they now have division leaders that have been here over 8 years and have built teams that follow them and want to be a part of what they're growing, and each individual person is really valued and set up for success. So yeah, culture at the end of the day drives a strong ROI, but it also drives really rewarding experiences for you as a leader and your team. So, Aaron, thank you for joining us. Thank you. This
Thank
has
you for
just been
having me.
so fun.
This was awesome. Enjoyed talking to you. So I appreciate the air conditioning conversation.
Yes, our air conditioning chat
Appreciate it.
here. So, if anybody has questions um, about things related to marketing, that's my nerdy wheelhouse. If people have questions related to things around culture, reach out to Aaron. And, shameless plug for his company. If you're looking for an exit strategy or looking for something different, it sounds like they've got a good system going. So I'm sure he'd be happy to chat with you about that as they continue to grow and partner with more great companies. So anyway, stay tuned for the next topic. And we will see you guys all here next time.
Bye.